But welcome, everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the Hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Be kind to the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. And, well, yeah, so all over the internet there's all sorts of wild speculation that maybe Netanyahu's dead. And I wanted to just kind of point out, since I've got you here, that there's no actual basis for that. Like, I mean, the only source even suggesting that it's possible that he was killed in a missile strike is Iran, and they do not state it as fact. I just, to kick us off here, because we're about to get into all sorts of wild speculation and weird bullshit, I thought we would actually just have a quick look at what they actually said. This is a statement from like an hour ago. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It deals with a bunch of stuff, but the bit that concerns us, because it concerns Netanyahu, is this last paragraph, which I'm just going to read in full. It's very short. The unknown fate of the criminal Zionist prime minister and the possibility of him and his family being killed or fleeing the occupied territories reveal the crisis and instability of the Zionists. If this child-killing criminal is alive, we will continue to pursue and kill him, end quote. So they're not saying it as fact either. And of course, I mean, they wouldn't be in a position to verify that in the first place. I mean, maybe they've got somebody else, but if they have somebody that close to Netanyahu that could actually verify that on site, they wouldn't want to give that away, is what I'm saying. So the thing is, what's interesting is everybody seems to have, like, seized on the bit about him possibly being dead. And as much as it brings joy to my heart to imagine him sitting down for a chat with Brian Thompson and Henry Kissinger and Charlie Kirk and Augusto Pinochet and Dick Cheney and all those other pieces of shit. As heartening as that thought is on a certain level, I actually think it would be better if the other possibility they suggest, namely that he fleed the occupied territories, that he flew the occupied territories, turned out to be the case. Because then he's abandoned the settler community in the middle of a war that he helped start. I mean, it's one thing, you know, his piece of shit son's been dodging military service all along, fucking around in Florida with his neo-Nazi friends, and people seem to be okay with that in the entity. But it's quite another thing if the PM himself has buggered off, and the idea of him fleeing the jurisdiction and possibly holding up someplace actually might be more damaging to the genocidal Zionist project in the end than even him being dead. So, like, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because there's lots of wild speculation. People, like, can go off on one quite easily, as we're going to see, because we're going to be looking at some more Professor Jiang. But that is the only source that is even suggesting it's possible. And they're very clear that they're not saying it's a fact, because they're not really in a position to verify it, and if they were, they certainly would not be giving that information away to the general public. So, because I have to look for videos of like assholes to talk about on stream, I get a lots of shit in my Rex. And so last night I had been looking for this Professor Jiang Xueqin. Apparently is his full name. And the recommendations immediately served me up what is Jimmy Dore, another favorite asshole. We don't watch him very often on here. Maybe you should probably look at him more. Who knows? But so naturally, fucking Jimmy Dore has him on. He calls it an exclusive interview. Yeah, he's exclusively interviewed with Jimmy Dore, and literally anyone else will stick a microphone in front of him. Very, very exclusive. So let's see what that's going to be about. Okay, skipping that shit. The most cogent thing that is on any Jimmy Dore show is the countdown. Hello, Hail Satine 9219. How you doing? There we go.
Live, Jimmy.
Everybody, welcome to this special edition of live stream of the Jimmy Dore Show, because we have a special guest with us. That's the whole.
No, we don't. God, I don't want to see his chat. That's no. I do not want to see Jimmy Dore's chat. That would not be good for anyone, I don't think.
Point of it, Professor Jiang is a Beijing-based educator.
No, okay. This is just so on brand for Jimmy Dore that he gets this wrong. He's based in Canada.
Writer and advocate for education reform, known for his work in promoting creativity, critical thinking, and global citizenship in Chinese schools. He holds a bachelor's degree in English literature from Yale University, and he gained international attention in 2020.
Yeah, considering the bullshit is sort of, I just take that as read, because, like, the sort of shit that's going on, I mean, that it is fucking hard to take.
24 for his viral prediction about foreseeing Donald Trump's return to power. And
yeah, I mean, this is wild. This is, I mean, we saw this when we were starting to look at this Jabroni last night. But, see, apparently the reason that everybody thinks that this guy is so fucking amazing is that in 2024 he predicted Trump was gonna win. You know, he was the guy. The one guy. I mean, out of what... kind of everybody predicted that, but apparently he predicted that in some special way, and that's why dickheads like to interview him, like Piers Morgan.
In the U.S.-Iran conflict and the U.S. losing that war based on historical patterns and game theory. Welcome to the show.
I mean, historical patterns is fascinating because every time he opens his... He doesn't seem to know anything about history. I haven't really seen him say anything that is really cogent about game theory either.
Professor Jiang, thank you for showing up. I appreciate it.
And just for anyone not familiar with him, he's not a professor of anything.
Thanks, Jimmy. I'm a huge fan of your show. I've been watching
That's all you really need to know about him, actually.
for like 5-6 years now.
Wow.
Jesus.
I'm very flattered. That makes me feel good. I'm completely enthralled with your
Hey,
video
Riveroon.
and explanations of what's happening with the Iran war. It's really kind of mind-blowing. I've learned so much already in the short
God. Okay, so
time just watching you. And
these motherfuckers are glazing like it's a donut factory. Hey, Riveroon.
Can you just give us a update now? Here we are, March 10th, Tuesday. Where do you see with the state of affairs?
Right. So I made the prediction that the United States would start a war with Iran in order to maintain empire.
I mean, again, with the fucking predictions. He made it like this guy is so fucking Nostradamus. The U.S. has been threatening war with Iran for like 20 years now. Well, actually, really, more like 46. Yeah, he's an English teacher, a high school English teacher. Which doesn't mean, I mean, you could be a high school English teacher and have worthwhile things to say about this, but then you would not be Professor Jiang. So it's never, invading Iran is never 100% not on the cards.
And that's exactly what's happening. Right now, America is an empire in decline. And we can tell because 5% of white American girls in their 20s are on OnlyFans.
Okay, like, leaving aside whether that figure is accurate, why does he specify white American girls? And what does he mean by girls? Are we talking grown women, I would assume? That's how you could tell it's an empire in decline. Not all the declining empire shit that's going on, but that there is OnlyFans.
Young people are broke. They try to make money on by gambling in cryptocurrency.
Who the fuck is trying to make money? Who the hell who is broke is trying to make money gambling on cryptocurrency? I mean, I'm not saying that there's nobody who's doing that, but like it takes a lot of money to buy into that grift.
There's massive inequality in China. There's massive inequality in America. Congress is deadlocked.
No, they aren't. They're not deadlocked.
Politicians no longer represent the best interests of the people.
Like, I mean, that's pretty evergreen.
America has become an oligarchy.
I mean, it is fascinating to me that this is all you need in order to be somebody who gets glazed by fucking Jimmy Dore, really. Because literally none of this is the least bit I mean, apart from just like bringing OnlyFans into it, I mean, I guess we don't need to look at his browser history. I hope he's paying. He better be tipping. But, fuck. Like, all this other stuff, it's just, like, mainstream bullshit that anyone could point out. And his prediction, like, I mean, there's one that remains to be seen, though it's not going very well for the U.S., certainly. Although it all depends on how you define winning and losing, as we talked about last night. And then there's one that everybody predicted, basically. And another one that was kind of on the cards and has been for a very long time.
The dollar has debased in value. And so these are all the signs of an empire in decline. Another
really?
Sign
That's all of them?
It's an empire lashes out against the world. So the empire engages in these silly, pointless wars in order to maintain hegemony through force and violence. And we saw.
I mean, that sounds like there is a point to them. I'm not saying not necessarily a valid or good point, but I mean, it is there from the point of view of those launching the wars. There's clearly a point because they want to maintain hegemony and dominance.
Saw that most clearly, most vividly, in January when Delta Force went in to kidnap Maduro, a sovereign president of a sovereign nation, and that goes against national law.
That was the time. That was the time the U.S. went against international law. I mean, yes, it does, but like that's not. It's not even the first time they've done that particular illegal thing. They did that to fucking Noriega.
And now what we're seeing in Iran is the same situation where America is desperate. It's trying to save the petrodollar. And to do that, they're trying to knock out Iran and impose...
I mean, the wild thing about this is the petrodollar would be in much better shape if the U.S. had left Iran alone.
A government that's much more friendly to the interests of American empire. And that's what's happening today.
I mean, but...
is he going... This is all... Like, to the extent that it isn't just absolute nonsense, like, wow, the empire is declining because a certain percentage of white girls are on OnlyFans, which, like, I mean, it won't be the last creepy racist thing you hear from him, because creepy racist shit is what he's into, and that's why he's on Jimmy Dore. But... like, all of this, like, anyone could have said all of this.
Well, how this seems to be destroying the petrodollar. Am I wrong? What am I missing, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, even Jimmy Dore notices. Oh, well, a sexist, bigoted YouTuber having this guy on for an interview, that tracks.
How did they miscalculate this in such a way to not see that exactly what is happening would happen, that Iran would knock out their military bases in the GCC states?
I mean, yeah. I mean, true, because fucking... I mean, Iran said they were going to do all of this.
And it's all over. So now they have closed the Strait of Hormuz. So isn't this actually... Did they not realize that they would close the Strait of Hormuz?
Like, why are you asking this guy? He's an English teacher in Canada. What do you mean? Why, like... He doesn't know what they realized or not.
I realize this would probably kill the petrodollar and even crash our own economy. What do you say to that?
Well, so the major sign of an empire decline is hubris. When empire was given...
you can tell he's an English teacher, because he's teaching ancient Greek plays, and the major sign of a tragic hero is hubris.
Self-reflection. When empire recognized the strategic capabilities of its adversaries, an empire would not decline, because an empire would engage in innovation.
Yeah, but I mean... Yeah, if empires were better at empiring, they probably would last longer. But could it be that actually there is some sort of inherent expansionist logic within the economic system?
Would engage in the self-reflection that was necessary to maintain the empire. So the issue was the 2003 Iraq War, when America, in about 2 weeks' time, was able to steamroll the Iraqis and overthrow Saddam Hussein.
Which, I mean, again, this is why the U.S. made sure that Iraq was disarmed before doing all this, because then you can do that. That was why they made sure of it. You can't do that when the place isn't disarmed.
But people forget that by 2003, Iraq was a depleted, degraded nation. It did not have air defense. And so...
Didn't have any defense, actually.
That protected itself from American attacks. And, you know, when Saddam Hussein was advised by his generals to develop air defense, his response was, there's actually no point. We can't defeat the Americans. So the Americans are silly enough to come attack us. Let them. But I don't think they will, because if they knock us out...
I mean, I I don't know if this is true. It wouldn't surprise. I mean, to the extent that the idea is that he assumed the U.S. was invincible, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, but I don't know where he's getting this. And I don't think Jimmy is going to ask him for a source, because Jimmy isn't big on sources.
Then becomes a regional superpower. And so they wouldn't do that. But obviously they did do that, and now that allowed Iran to become the regional superpower of that region. So it's really hubris.
Well, but Iran isn't actually the regional superpower of the region. They could potentially become that. I mean, if the U.S. and Israel get out of the way, they would certainly be in the running for it. But a bunch of other people would be as well, actually. So, I mean, yes, it's true that Iran actually benefited heavily from the situation, especially because not having Saddam Hussein there was good for them, because Saddam Hussein was one of their sworn enemies.
You overestimate your own strengths, and you have contempt for your enemies. And that's why we are in this situation. Donald Trump really believed that Iran would be another iteration of Venezuela, where they would go in, decapitate the regime, kill the Ayatollah, and there'll be a new president, a new Ayatollah, who will be amendable.
Except, I mean, I've heard this before, and it doesn't make any sense, because the thing is, what the U.S. is doing in Iran is fundamentally different from what they did in Venezuela. What they did in Venezuela was a one-off fucking kidnapping operation where they bombed some civilian areas basically as cover for that and then got the fuck out. This was not that. This was nothing like that. I mean, so, like, comparing the two doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Negotiating with the Americans, and then he would have great television for the next week. And they cannot possibly anticipate that the Iranians would be resilient, that they would...
Yeah, they could anticipate that.
Be so resolved.
I mean, it seems like they didn't, but a lot of people anticipated that.
That the people would be so unified.
Hell, I anticipated that.
And now they are in a world of hurt. And Donald Trump himself, in the press conference, said that...
I mean, I don't know that the U.S. really is in a world of hurt. I mean, it's not good for the U.S., but, I mean, they're not hurting anything like Israel is. Because Israel's right the fuck there. I mean, this isn't like a couple of colonial bases that are getting hit in Israel. It's their main headquarters.
Giving bad advice. He names Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, and Peter Hesef, and saying that they told me that this would be quick and easy, and that's why I did this.
Wait, Jared Kushner told him it would be quick and easy? I mean, I have not heard any of this, and once again, like, citation needed for every factual assertion he makes, that because I have not heard this anywhere. But if he said that, if he believed that he went to Jared Kushner for an assessment of the military response of Iran, like, remember, this isn't the first time the U.S. has attacked Iran in recent years. They just did it last year, and Israel got wrecked in that one too. So, like, why would anyone be surprised by any of this?
So that, do you, again, how could even you know, amateurs like Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, when it comes to foreign relations, how could they not see this coming, right? I'm not...
I mean, again, like, why are you asking this guy? He doesn't fucking know. I mean, what's wild is that he does not, I mean, English teacher in Canada, and he does not actually say, well, I mean, the obvious, like, if you were asked this in an interview, the obvious thing you say is, obviously, I'm not privy to any internal deliberations, and it's a fucking mystery to me as well, actually, because it was obvious. But instead, he just responds like, oh yeah, I mean, here's exactly what was going on behind closed doors, because they share these things with me, apparently.
I'm not overreacting that this is Is this threaten the petrodollar, or do you think this will end the petrodollar?
Well,
I mean, he sort of said that he thought it was going to protect the petrodollar, which, I mean, again, since he's a guy who's apparently marketing himself based on his cool-ass predictions, that's one that really ought to be a bit of an asterisk next to his predictive ability, because...
It's a question of what your interests are, right? So we're assuming that they all want to defend the American empire. But let's assume that for whatever reason, they want to end the American empire. They want to cause this disastrous war.
Wait a second. This is totally contradicting what he just said. Because he was saying that this was about hubris, this was about protecting the petrodollar, you know, protecting the empire and everything. And now he's saying maybe it's because they want to end the empire? Like, make up your fucking mind.
In the Middle East, America is so embarrassed that it must retreat back into the Western Hemisphere. What would happen? Well, Israel would become the dominant power in the Middle East.
Well, no, it wouldn't. Why the fuck would it be the dominant? Okay, so this makes absolutely no sense. Because if we're saying that the U.S. is retreating from the region, well, they're not retreating for the region if they're still bankrolling Israel. And if they're not bankrolling Israel, Israel isn't going to be the fucking leading regional power of anything. They won't even be the most powerful state in Palestine at that point. Like, I mean... So, like, commit to a fucking narrative. I mean, he's doing world building here. He's doing fucking speculative history, really, when you get down to it. But, like, what does it mean that the U.S. retreats from the region? Just remove their bases, but they're still bankrolling Israel, then the U.S. is just using Israel as a proxy like they are now. But if they're fully retreating and they're no longer bankrolling Israel, Israel collapses. Israel is absolutely in no fit state to get along without the U.S. at this point. Their economy is completely wrecked. It was already wrecked before this extremely ill-advised aggression against Iran, because the genocide has not been good for the economy, and the international response to the genocide has not been good for it either.
And they would achieve something called the Greater Israel Project.
Okay. Canada's doing psyops on the Americans with this guy. New theory just dropped. Hey, Badger. Wait. So the idea is the U.S. cuts Israel loose, vacates the region, so Israel's no longer getting hot and cold running fighter planes and JDAMs. But in the midst of that, and against the fierce resistance of all the different asymmetric forces, plus Iran, they're going to achieve the Greater Israel Project all of a sudden? A Greater Israel that they're not even in a position to populate, it's worth noting. Because they can't even maintain a majority within Palestine. And they're going to, like...
And you know, Naftali Bennett, who is the former Prime Minister of Israel, and who was expected to become the next Prime Minister of Israel once Netanyahu leaves the world stage, he said that Turkey is...
I have not heard anyone else say that he was expected to be that.
New Iran. So this tells you that at this stage, he said that Turkey is new Iran.
Turkey. Oh, okay. So Turkey is the new Iran. Okay, yeah, of course. I mean, and we can totally credit it because an Israeli fascist, Naftali Bennett, is a fucking fascist. Just kind of said so. Never mind that actually Erdogan gets on pretty well with Israel. Erdogan is a NATO vassal. He depends on the U.S. for any capability of power projection. I mean, I've heard people say, well, Turkey's a net exporter of arms. But the thing is that there are different kinds of weapons, and they could not maintain the kind of power projection that they do with the sort of stuff that they can in-house. I mean, Turkey has actually been playing a double game all along. So when Bennett says shit like this is like when Likud was saying that Biden is Hamas, which, I mean, they actually were saying. I mean, mind-blowing that they would even suggest that, considering how pro-Israel he was. But they're world building. That's how you build worlds, apparently. But so we're just going to accept Naftali Bennett's statement that, I mean, I don't know that he actually said that. Again, citation needed. Not impossible that he would have said that, though. But I mean, it's bullshit.
So this tells you that the Israelis are thinking far ahead. That after this war,
I mean, they're clearly not. I mean, if they were thinking far ahead, they would wrap this thing up and try to regain some level of social acceptability internationally.
Iran is over, they'll still go after Turkey. Why? Because in the Greater Israel Project, with
Hello, Sqidadir. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
is what they believe that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is completely out of nowhere. In fact, it was so absurd that at one point, like, one of the... Oh, Skidadir. Welcome. Is this your first time here? There is one of the very few occasionally worthwhile things to be on, like, a Zionist state television is an investigative journalism program called Mekorot. Amongst other things, they expose some of the bigger lies about October 7th that the Israeli government was putting out. But they decided to take on this bullshit that Netanyahu and Likud were putting out about how, like, Biden was Hamas, he was the most anti-Israel person everywhere. So they decided to bring in, like, top Israeli officials, top embassy officials, top Biden officials to see what they had to say, and they just totally debunked this idea that Biden was, like, anti-Israel, because, I mean, he fucking isn't. I mean, that is not hard. Let me drop you, my Discord server if you want to join there. Okay.
God promised their ancestor Abraham they will have control from all the Middle East, from the Nile to the Euphrates. That includes Iraq. That includes Turkey.
Yeah, and how the fuck is... Like, how are they going to manage to do that? I mean, the only reason they have any kind of foothold in Syria is because Jolani isn't doing anything to resist. In fact, he's actually more or less supporting them in invading Lebanon. And if there weren't this, like, Vichy puppet regime running Lebanon that is actually more interested in disarming the people defending Lebanon from Israel than they are in kicking Israel out of Lebanon, then Israel would have a much harder time. I mean, because as much as, like, the resistance there are doing, like, they're doing this at the same time as they're having to deal with the army, which is on Israel's side, and, you know, basically helping Israel ethnically cleanse their territory.
Includes parts of Saudi Arabia. That includes parts of Egypt.
Yeah, I mean, so you just sort of assume that if the U.S., like, okay, what he's saying here is that if the U.S. got out of the Middle East, which he hasn't explained whether that means that the U.S. is still using Israel as a proxy or not, I mean, which is kind of an important question, that suddenly Israel would be in a position to, like, take over a huge amount of territory that would largely be empty or full of hostile civilians because they haven't got anywhere near enough people to populate that kind of territory. So, okay, so that means he thinks that the U.S. is the only thing standing in the way of that? I mean, just logically, he hasn't said that, but logically, that's the only way that makes sense.
So, it's really a question of what
Wait, what?
Oh,
what?
no good. You know what? You froze for a second, and you froze right at the moment where you said
It confused the shit out of me because fucking Jimmy froze too.
Really a question of
what the end goals are here.
Yes, it is a question of what the angles are here. Thank you, Mr. Game Theory Professor Guy.
What do you think the strategy and the purpose is here?
Well, you've got two, like, you've given us two contradictory versions that you believe.
Because Donald Trump has never really articulated a purpose and a strategy. So that makes you wonder what they're really trying to accomplish here.
Well, or whether there really is one. Other than maybe try to wreck Iran.
Well, I'll give you my guess of what they're trying. They're trying to turn Iran into Syria, meaning.
I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, what Jimmy is saying there actually is kind of consistent with some of the many vague, mumbly, and contradictory statements that have come out of the U.S. foreign policy establishment and the government. They have kind of suggested that that's kind of what their ideal outcome would be, something like that. But
they're trying to turn it into a failed state with and divide it up into ethnicities, and so it kind of fights each other over water, and then so they lose all their power, and then the hegemon in the region, the big power, would become Israel.
Yeah, I mean, no, the hegemon in the region would still be the U.S. in that case.
Am I wrong about this?
I mean, I hate to say it, but I think he has actually, I mean, they have said so many contradictory things. But this is certainly one version of what they have said, and Israel has definitely said similar things.
No, I completely agree with that assessment, and we know because of how America is conducting this war. So the first problem is that the Americans have yet to...
I mean, how the U.S. is conducting this war is so far, like, disastrously for them.
...articulate a clear, coherent strategy.
Wait, so the way we know that this is their strategy is that they don't have a clear and coherent strategy. Wow, I didn't know that that's how that worked.
The military objectives are. The reason why you wouldn't do that, the reason why you don't want to articulate a strategy is you would then be contained or bounded by your strategy.
I mean, not really.
If it's about helping democracy protesters, then you would not be bombing civilians.
Yeah, but I mean, they would say that it was about that, even though it obviously wouldn't be. I mean, yes, it's very true that the fact that they go around bombing civilians is proof that they do not give a shit about, like, opposition protesters and protecting civilians in Iran. But I mean, anyone paying attention already knew that.
Right? Remember the first day, they bombed a school, a girls' school in the south of Iran, and they killed about 170 schoolgirls. And now there's credible evidence that it was actually an American Tomahawk missile that killed these schoolgirls. The Americans have struck a desalination plant in Iran. Oil depots that are being used to provide fuel for civilian purposes were struck by the Israelis. And now if you go to Tehran, the capital, it's basically the apocalypse. It's just a black sky. And so if you're intent on helping the Iranians achieve democracy, you would be doing...
Speeding this up a bit so that we can get through more.
So I think that you're absolutely right.
Well, I mean, like, are we seriously entertaining the idea that the U.S. was interested in democracy in Iran? I think they've made it very clear that they're not. Because their response to democracy in Iran the last time was to impose a puppet dictator, the Shah. And, like, the closest... I mean, at this point... like... Well, what's going on there is more democratic than the Shah. I mean, but that does not take much. And their response to that is that they fucking hate it. They really would have preferred to just have the dictatorship continue, the outright dictatorship.
That they're trying to degrade Iran's capacity to be a nation state. And they're trying to balkanize the country and have divide and rule.
And do do you think there'll be? I mean, so when they attack things like the water desalination plants or their oil reserves, doesn't that have the opposite effect? Doesn't that make it less likely that that strategy will work of dividing the country, or no? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, especially because like the good non-professor was saying that they're going to lose, right? But it doesn't. I mean, it sounds like he's forgotten about that.
Right. So in theory, in a war of attrition, you don't want to do that because you want to turn the people against the government. So when you destroy critical civil infrastructure, it has the opposite effect. But we assume it's a war of attrition, but it could also be a war of destruction. Where well,
I mean, the thing about a war of attrition is you don't often get into one intentionally. I mean, the weaker side will often be aiming for a war of attrition. And if they are lucky, they will force the stronger aggressor into it. That is one of the things that the resistance had managed fairly handily in Gaza, for example.
Trying to destroy everything, in which case, it doesn't matter if the civilian population supports the government because everything is destroyed. So right now, Iran is suffering under a lot of environmental pressure. So if you destroy water infrastructure, dams, reservoirs, desalination plants, then the people of Iran, 92 million people, would be forced to immigrate elsewhere. They would be forced to flee to Europe, basically. And that may be the end goal. Now, I know this is terrible to think about.
I mean, yes, it is.
But it does explain why they're doing what they're doing.
No, it doesn't. Like, okay, so the idea is that they're doing this in order for Iranian refugees to go to Europe? Like,
we assume that they're interested in regime change, and they've articulated that their goal is regime change.
I mean, they've articulated that it's not, too. They've articulated different things on different fucking days.
It's entirely possible. Their goal is to destroy Iran as a civilization.
And so let me ask you quickly, is this playing out the way you thought it would play out? And has anything surprised you that has happened or hasn't happened?
This is not...
I mean, a guy who has based his entire fucking grift on being such a... being such a great predictor of things. Like, he was the only person, apparently, who realized in 2024 that Trump was going to win. God. I mean, he can't admit to being surprised by anything.
This is not turning out the way I thought it would turn out. Because if you go back to the 2003 Iraq War, even though they were intent on regime change, they still went through the bureaucratic protocol process of, trying to win public support, of providing evidence of weapons of mass destruction.
I mean, they never provided evidence of weapons of mass destruction, though. They claimed they had evidence. They never showed it to us.
Made a point of bringing out nations and making a case in front of the Security Council. And so they respected the Constitution. They respected...
I mean, they didn't respect the Constitution.
The international rules-based order.
No, I mean, they didn't. Oh, well, the international rules-based order, which is just whatever the U.S. makes up, yeah, they respected that. But Trump's respecting that, too. Because the thing about the international rules-based order is it's some bullshit the U.S. made up to avoid talking about international law, which they're not so much respecting.
Respected the opinions of the American people.
No, they didn't. Because it was actually, it was the most unpopular war. It was, at the time, it was a historically unpopular war from the start, and it continued to get less popular as it went on.
None of this is true in this instance. The vast majority of American people were against this war to begin with, and they're still opposed to this war. There's already rumors.
But what's interesting is there's very little real opposition to it in Washington.
Using ground troops. So it seems as though this government, this Trump government, they have a script in place, and they just want to achieve the script regardless of the consequences, regardless of the political pushback.
And it doesn't seem like they're managing to achieve the script, and they don't seem to have entirely settled on what the script is.
And that's what's surprising. So a theory is that this is not...
I'm trying to find... He gets into this bullshit about Pax Judaica, and I wanted to hear... This is fairly vanilla bullshit. I want to hear him talking about... I want to hear him get into his, anti-Semitisms.
is Australia, Bondi Beach. But you will see more examples of false flags against Jews in order to scare the Jewish diaspora. Bondi Beach. But you will see more examples of false flags against Jews.
But there haven't been false flags against Jews. There have been some attacks. They haven't been false flags. They have not claimed to be done by somebody who did not do them.
To scare the Jewish diaspora to return to Jerusalem. And this is very important if they are to achieve their end times prophecy. And once the Jews are able to build the Great Israel Project, once they achieve the third temple, and once the Jewish diaspora return to Jerusalem, then this will initiate something called the War of Gog and Magog, where the entire world attacks.
Like, okay. I like how he just sort of assumes that the Jews are all keen on building the third temple. Like, I don't know that most of us even know that's a thing, or, like, that is a thing amongst fascists in Israel.
And marches against Jerusalem. And people can speculate as to what the War of Gog and Magog will be about. But if you just look at...
No, people do not speculate about this. Like, that isn't just something that, like, that isn't just a discussion that people have. That is some random, wild bullshit that evangelical fascists talk about. I mean, George W. Bush, it's worth noting, said that the invasion of Iraq was Gog and Magog. Yeah, the Jews. That's always wonderful.
They believe that Gog and Magog are Russia and Persia, right? A combination of the Orthodox world and the Islamic world will march against Pax Judaica. And
oh, here we go.
At the worst of times, when all hope seems lost, that's when God will intervene to save his chosen people, the Jews. That means the return of Jesus.
And that's not actually what the evangelicals say. Because what they say is that in order to make Jesus return, they do have to ship us all to Palestine, but then they have to kill us all. At least those of us who don't convert.
And the coming of the Messianic age. According to Christian Zionists, the moment that Jesus returns, there'll be the rapture, where they'll all ascend to heaven before the final battle commences. And so what they're really trying to do is they're trying to accelerate the end times to force God's hand and usher in the Messianic age. And they believe that that's the true test of your faith. How?
I mean, this is just like random patchwork bullshit. I mean, yes, a lot of this is actually not an entire... This is a fairly accurate summary of Christian Zionism, but to what extent... I mean, like, to what extent is that actually the operative idea when you keep in mind that the U.S. has been trying to wreck Iran since 1979?
And, you know, suicide bombers are Muslims, and they don't respect life, and they want to kill everybody, and you too. And but it seems to me that this has really been propaganda from the Zionists and Israel to get Christians and Muslims fighting each other, so that exactly what could happen is that Israel could take over the Middle East. And
I mean, Israel cannot take over the Middle East because Israel is totally dependent on the United States. If Israel is taking over the Middle East, that's just the U.S. reasserting their control over the Middle East in a new form.
And get the United States out of there. So how does...
But Israel does not want the United States out of there. Israel would fucking collapse if the United States got out of there. In fact, the reason a big part of the reason that the U.S. supports Israel so heavily is precisely that it is literally the only country, the only population in the entire Arab-Iranian region that doesn't want the U.S. to get the fuck out of there.
It seems obvious. Like, it's like I always say, I'm a C student, so if I can figure this out, I know they know this stuff. So how does the United States not know that Israel really wants them out of there?
Because that's bullshit. Israel doesn't want them out of there.
How do they not know that Israel really wants us fighting their wars with Muslims?
Wait, okay, so which is it? Do they want the U.S. out of the region, or do they want the U.S. fighting their wars? Like, I love how U.S. imperialism is just completely absent from this. And, I mean, that is a thing, like, it's like clockwork. ever since the mainstream opinion in the general public shifted way against Israel because of the genocide and stuff, we're starting to see mainstreaming of far-right bullshit narratives that are all about exonerating the United States and, pretending that there's no imperialism. But now, Jimmy Dore is saying that Israel wants the U.S. to get out of the region, but also to fight its wars in the region. Like, that is even more contradictory than Jiang's bullshit.
That they're really not our enemy because they weren't. How does this again?
But they, the thing is, they don't like they meaning Muslims, meaning the like Arabs and Iranians of the Arab-Iranian region. And the thing is, actually, they are sworn enemies of the U.S. They do not like the U.S. in their region. And if you actually look at the polling, they consider the U.S. the biggest threat to them. And that's not something that started with a special relationship, as it's called, with Israel. Dwight D. Eisenhower, when he was president, was confused by it because he said, you know, it's weird, the ruling classes in the Middle East seem to like us well enough, but the people fucking hate us. And he asked his aides, he asked his intelligence analysts, why do the people hate us there? And they said, well, look at the people that we're supporting to rule over them. They're all corrupt, venal, scumbag assholes who gift us their oil rather than using it for the benefit of their people. What's not to hate? I mean, the idea that people in the Middle East would really love to have the U.S. there? No, they fucking don't.
If I know this, how do they not know it?
Oh, well, because it's not true.
Why are they...
It doesn't even make fucking sense.
With Donald Trump and everybody right now who's in charge of things, those people who are above Donald Trump, why would they allow us to be kicked out of the Middle East like that and give it over to Israel?
What the fuck? Like, who does he think is going to kick the U.S. out of the Middle East? Israel isn't doing it. I mean, in fact, the U.S. footprint in the region, to use the technical bullshit term, has grown specifically in order to prop up the Zionist regime. So what the hell is this?
Right. So I think the main reason is that these religious fanatics have spent centuries planting the seeds, embedding themselves into power so that they would control all levels of power in the Western world. So let me give you an example of this. It's always been assumed that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent responsible for a honeypot operation on his island.
I mean, it's so wild that he'll say something that is certainly one thesis that has been put forward. Yeah, apparently we're just accepting as common coin that obviously Israel would like the U.S. to leave the region. And just leave them alone with Hamas and Hezbollah and the Abu Ali Mustafa brigades and the Martyr Omar Qasem brigades and all the other fucking brigades and Iran and the Ansar Allah. Yeah, I mean, Israel would love to be left alone with them. I'm sure they would absolutely... in fact, you know, Donald Trump, listen to Jimmy Dore. He knows what Israel really wants. Leave them alone. Just get the fuck out of the region and leave them to their own devices. Like, what the fuck is this?
Bill Gates would go and he would film them in compromising positions, and then he would blackmail them. But if you actually read the Epstein emails, what you would recognize is that he wasn't actually doing blackmail.
Well, we haven't got all of the emails.
In fact, these very famous, powerful people like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, they were trying to become his friend. You know, Bill Gates...
Wow, so he's saying that, like, this guy just doesn't know anything, really, because, yeah, the fact that he might be blackmailing some people does not mean that he wasn't also trying to make friends with other people, because he seems to have been running, at the very least in his own interest, a major influence operation. I mean, kind of that's one of the things billionaires just sort of do. And part of running an influence operation is that you want to build up a stock of people who remember you fondly for when the shit hits the fan. So that people will come to your defense because they remember you being nice to them, essentially. So these things do not contradict each other. You can be nice to some people and blackmail other people. And also, I mean, look at the shit that he had in these emails. I mean, if you... I mean, specifically in the case of Gates, who was like, how can I... like, he was trying to... It was something about giving his wife an STD or some shit. And it's like, he put this in an email, which, I mean, Bill Gates, wow, IT pioneer right there. Absolute brilliant move there. Obviously, you want to put that kind of embarrassing shit in an email, because that way nobody will ever see it. But, like, I mean, you could certainly blackmail somebody with that.
It was asked, why were you hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein? And Bill Gates' response was, well, I was trying to get money from him for my foundation. And that's just...
Yeah.
That sounds kind of weird. Like, you're the richest man in the world. Why are you begging Jeffrey Epstein?
I mean, he wasn't the only... And the thing is...
For money.
Well, because this is one of the things that you actually... If you knew anything about this, you'll find that even the richest people in the world actually don't like to be the sole source of funding for projects. Because liability comes into it and all sorts of other things. There's like tax shit that gets into it. And so they like to actually fund some of the stuff with debt. I mean, look at Elon Musk. Look at his Twitter takeover. He funded that with a huge amount of debt. He did not buy it in cash. He bought it, I mean, they were Tesla shares, and then he actually took on a whole bunch of credit from a bunch of sovereign wealth funds and banks.
And the answer is that because Jeffrey Epstein was an operative for a very powerful organization. The emails don't tell us what the organization is.
But fortunately, we've got this guy to tell us.
But look, he was involved in Libya. He was involved in the great financial crisis. He seemed to have a...
Well, I mean, he's a fucking financier. Of course he was involved in the great financial... I was involved in the great financial crisis because I had a bank account at the time. Like, literally everybody was involved in the fucking global financial crisis. That's why it was a global financial crisis, because it literally affected everybody. Like, what does this? What the fuck does this even mean?
Pulse of all geopolitical events. And he said that, you know what, if we can anticipate geopolitical events, we can make a lot of money. But that can also mean that if we can manipulate geopolitical events...
Well, wow, this is just basic fucking investment analyst shit. Like, this is why they have all these quantitative models that they use, because the idea, like, I mean, he's acting like this is some deep insight of his, but this is, like, literally how all that works. Because if either you have inside information, or you're constantly trying to gain whatever kind of intelligence you can get in order to work out what's about to happen so you can position yourself in your investments in a way that will be profitable based on that. Like, this is basic. This isn't like, this isn't some special shit that Epstein was doing. This is what, like, people in his line of work all do. And I mean his, like, legit line of work, the financial advising and stuff.
We can make a lot of money. There are rumors that he was somehow involved in 9/11 as well.
Whoa, there are rumors, so no emails. Who could you name the source of those rumors?
Access to at most 50% of his emails. Then you ask yourself, what organization would he represent? And the closest...
I mean, apart from his own interests, I mean, the two that really kind of stick out are the CIA and Mossad.
Speculation, okay, and again, this is speculation, is the possibility that he was a representative, a political operative of the Chabad Lubavitch, which Sarah Colson mentioned.
Okay, he doesn't even know how to pronounce Chabad. Okay, so he's decided it's not fucking Mossad. It's not the CIA. It's Chabad, the Hasidic group. Like, they're the one. What? I mean, and let me just say, considering that he had a lot of money in all kinds of charities and shit, it wouldn't be surprising if he did have money in Chabad, because, I mean, that would be a pretty normal place for a guy like him to put money. But, like, to act like Chabad are the fucking string pullers? Are you kidding me?
In a monologue a few days ago, Chabad Lubavitch has been around for a couple of centuries, and they are Messianic Jews who want to...
Like, he doesn't even know how to pronounce the name. Chabad. And I mean, accounting for his, he has a Mandarin accent. Of course he does. He's from Beijing originally. But there's still, it's an H, and Chinese definitely has that sound. I know my Chinese isn't great, but but I know that there's that sound. It's not Chabad.
Usher in the end times. And
no, they don't believe in the end times the way the Christians do. They have a completely different idea. Like, you cannot talk about the Hasidic version of all this shit and the Christian evangelical version of this as if they're the same thing. Because, for one thing, they don't agree on who the Messiah is. And if he knew he says all this shit about the Jews, he clearly doesn't even know that. Like, I mean, Passover is coming up. You could ask somebody if you probably hadn't pissed off every Jewish person you knew. Because at Passover, we set an empty spot at the table and leave the door unlocked and open, specifically in case he pops round. It's Elijah. The prophet Elijah is the expected Messiah.
Another piece of evidence to suggest that Chabad Lubavitch is very powerful is that...
I mean...
Kushner, the son-in-law of Donald Trump, he is a Chabad Lubavitch family. His entire family is part of this.
No, he isn't. I mean, like, seriously, he isn't Hasidic. Like, this guy does not know what Chabad is. Like, again, it wouldn't be surprising if Kushner's also got money. I mean, it is a reactionary, fundamentalist Jewish cult-like organization. I mean, so Kushner might have money and might donate to them, but the thing about Chabad is that they take the mitzvahs very, very seriously. And so if Kushner were a member, he would not be clean shaven. For fuck's sake.
Based in Brooklyn. And what is Kushner doing now? Well, he and Steve Witkoff are Trump's envoys to peace in Ukraine, right? Then they went to Russia to negotiate peace with Putin. Then they went to Ukraine to negotiate peace with Zelensky. They're very close to Netanyahu. And during these Iran negotiations, they were Trump's peace envoys. But, during the negotiations, Steve Witkoff went on TV and said that he suspects the Iranians are a couple of weeks away from weapons-grade uranium enrichment.
Oh, well, I mean, because like, fucking Steve Witkoff would understand about uranium. Fucking real estate spiff. But, like, everybody has said, every fucking politician, that is the line. It's like the aristocrats for comedians. You have to have a version of the aristocrats if you want to be in comedy, one hears. And every politician in the U.S. has to have a version of Iran is just 5 minutes away from getting nuclear weapons.
Which for him is to say that the Iranians are negotiating in bad faith.
Yeah, that's right. That was the point of him lying about that.
So he wasn't looking to reach an agreement with the Iranians. He was looking to sabotage, torpedo negotiations.
Wow! Like, welcome to what we already knew. Yes, the negotiations were cover for the sneak attack. Like, wow.
And so, is it possible that Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff...
Ooh, I love an is it possible. I love it when you got some high-grade, random, just bullshit with no substantiation. The way you put that out there while not taking any responsibility with it is with an is it possible.
They are trying to manipulate geopolitical events in a certain way that achieves their eschatology. That they are operatives of religious individuals.
Like, if you knew anything... Because here's the thing. Another thing about fucking fundamentalist Jewish eschatology it doesn't fucking work the same way as fundamentalists. Like, this idea that you can just sort of make these things happen. Yeah, that's the evangelical Christian approach, and a lot of that shit, like the rapture, is barely 100 years old. Incidentally, that has not been around long. But the idea that that's how, I mean, that isn't actually the sort of Hasidic way of looking at these things.
And there's a script in place, and they're just the actors in the script. So the Shabbat Lubavitch movement is something that we can look at. Also, the Freemasons, right? Because the Freemasons...
Oh, wow. I mean, of course, you got to look at the Freemasons. Like... And if you... I mean, the wild thing is the reason... This guy, if you were to introduce him by just saying... This guy thinks Hasidic Jews and Freemasons are responsible for all of history. Everybody would know he was full of shit, except for Nazis. So instead, they call him a game theorist.
The ones who control the national security apparatus in America.
No, they aren't.
And a third of U.S. presidents have been Freemasons. The most famous Freemason, of course, was Harry S. Truman. He was a 33rd degree Freemason, the highest level Freemason. He was a 33rd president of the United States. And he was the one who...
I mean, who knows? I don't give a shit whether this is true or not, but, like, we're descending into a very special place here.
The dropping of nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which sit on the 33rd latitude.
Wait, okay, I need to pull up a map now. Because I do not think they are, in fact, on the same latitude. I'm fairly certain they're not. I have to look at that because that's just so easy to verify. Okay. So there's Hiroshima. And here's Nagasaki. Not on the same fucking latitude. Not on the same fucking longitude. They're actually a fair ways away from each other in both of those directions. And let me just see, okay. Is it the 33rd? 130. So not the 33rd. 132. Also not the 33rd. Like, if they had bombed Beppu, he might have had a point.
So, are all these coincidence? I'm not really sure. Right?
No, I mean, they're not even true.
Powerful people.
Like, motherfucker, you're talking about geopolitics and you haven't bothered to verify things you're saying by looking at a map?
We're extremely religious, and they believe that they've uncovered God's plan. And they are patient.
No, they don't.
Methodically embedding themselves into power so that they can achieve their eschatology. And they feel as though this is the moment. This is...
Like...
the moment we've been waiting for 500 years, and another 5-10 years, and we'll achieve our plan. And that's why,
like, this is just wild.
We see so much anxiety in the world. That's why we see so much desperation in the world, right?
Wow, that's why. I was wondering why there was anxiety and desperation. See, I thought it was capitalism and the fact that everybody's fucking broke. And the climate is fucked up, but apparently it's Chabad and the Freemasons.
I know.
And so can you...
Which thing is not even a thing, Riveroon? I mean, there's so many things that he says that are not things.
What is the... So if Kushner and Witkoff are negotiating with Russia and Ukraine and also with Iran and Israel in the Middle East, and they are part of this Shabbat Lubavitch, which...
Shabbat Lubavitch, like, fucking hell. That Lubavitch sounds like the main character in like some sort of Yiddish porn. Okay.
Wants to bring about the end times. Tell me the connection then between Russia and Ukraine and what's happening right now with the Israel, United States, and Iran.
Okay, so...
Okay, like, we're just gonna pull something out of his ass right now.
Speculation. But...
What is opposed to the other stuff, which was just rock hard?
One possible connection is this. The war in Ukraine was started in order to initiate World War III.
Was it?
To compel force an American response, right? Because if the war in Ukraine is successful, then Russia would control 1/3 of the world's carbohydrates and much of the world's energy resources.
Carbohydrates? Like, is he talking about the grain? Like, there's...
thing that's very important is that the war in Ukraine would severely damage the European economy. And you could argue, from a conspiratorial perspective, that was intentional. What?
Oh, you could argue that, yeah, from a, what did he say, a conspiratorial perspective?
Why? Because in the Chabad-Lubavitch eschatology, Europe is the enemy. Why? Because if we go back 2,000 years, the Jews and the Romans were great adversaries.
Wait, wow, wait a second. He thinks, oh, I love this. This is adorable. This is adorable. He thinks that in order to explain, like, let's leave aside the idea that there is this Chabad eschatology that where Europe is the great enemy, but like he assumes that you would have to go back 2,000 years to find out why European Jews would consider Europe hostile? Like, why? Like, any year in those 2,000 you could find examples of why a lot of Jews would consider Europe hostile.
And so the Romans need to be destroyed. They need to be avenged because it was the Romans who destroyed the Second Temple. And who are the heirs and the ancestors? The descendants of the Romans?
Oh wow, yeah, that's right. We do absolutely. I mean, we're totally on a fucking quest of vengeance against the fucking Romans.
Western Europe, right? So you see this massive influx of Islamic refugees into Western Europe. That's caused.
Okay. Well, I thought we were talking about Jews. I mean, I'm kind. Oh, he's doing a great replacement. That's what this is. He's doing the fucking great replacement now.
Seeing a lot of social disunity, a lot of social conflict. You ask yourself, were they really that silly as to not know that these millions and millions of Muslim immigrants would destroy their social fabric?
But they didn't. They literally didn't. They were used as an excuse to destroy a social fabric that the ruling class was already destroying. Like, Lebanon has way more refugees, like proportionally and even numerically, just in absolute terms, than any European country took in. The idea that this was destroying the social fabric is complete nonsense. But so is he saying that the Syrian refugee crisis is my people's way of getting back at the fucking Romans? Is that where he's going? Like, what the fuck? This is wild.
Okay, so again, it's all speculation. Right? But
wow, I'm glad he mentioned that. I'm glad. I mean, I thought this was some rock hard scientific data here.
That's a connection between Ukraine and this eschatology. Now,
wait, but this has nothing to do with that, though. What the fuck do the Islamic refugees have to do with Ukraine? That's not where they came from. Like, what the fuck is any of this? Oh. This is not a thing. This is just like one non-thing after another.
Because of this war in Ukraine.
And why has he got his camera set up so we get this fucking showcase view of his nostrils? Does he realize that what that is actually doing to the look of his nose? Like, if he just moved the camera up, like, use the rule of thirds and move the camera up so it's looking down on him, not like up at his nostrils, it would be so much better.
The Americans are forced to respond by invading Iran.
Wait. So... what? Okay, so the response, the compelled response to the invasion of Ukraine was years later to attack Iran. See, I would have thought it was sending huge amounts of weapons to Ukraine. I mean, because that has been the response. But no. It's
another connection.
He just talks fast. That's all. That's his whole thing. He just says there's a connection, as if that creates one.
Turkey
So wait, are you? Can I just stop? Are you saying that part of the calculation for the United States to attack Iran was the fact that Russia is winning the war in Ukraine? That was.
Yes.
I mean, which they're not. They're not. It's a fucking endless stalemate there.
Right. So let me explain. For 20 years, the Anglo-American...
Like, even look at Jimmy's face. Even he's like, what the fuck did I just invite onto my show? He doesn't know where the hell this is going either. Like, I mean, he's used to being the one who says the wild bullshit.
Empire had a very basic understanding of the world. The Anglo-American Empire is low
I mean, his understanding of the world is basic.
Population. The rest of the world is high population. So how do you maintain your empire throughout the entire world? Well, you do so by controlling sea lanes for trade purposes. But what this means is that you can never allow a power to emerge in Eurasia that could unify the Eurasian continent and create a trade bloc that is continental, which can negate Anglo-American...
They're already...
sea power. Okay, this is called the Kender thesis. And so that's...
Oh, God, I mean, this is just Dugan.
People believe that's why America entered World War I.
People, he means Dugan.
And World War II.
No, I mean, that was about colonies.
Because the big fear is that Germany could unify Eurasia and create this continental trade bloc.
I mean, no, that has literally never been the fear.
So, Anglo-American Empire is heavily invested in creating as much disunity, chaos, and conflict as much as possible in Europe and in Asia.
I mean, no. That is, like, there are times when that is the strategy that the U.S. uses. There are other times when it's not. It depends on what they're trying to fucking achieve. Like, God, this guy. Okay, well, it is time for me to wrap up. And let me just say, this is also kind of a fundraiser for a project of mine called the Crowdfunded Translation Project. And here you can look at, I'm going to give you a link where you can find the translations I've done so far. Right now, I am trying to raise $450 to cover the cost of my translating an article about the dodgy financial dealings of from 1969. The dodgy financial dealings of the CIA bankrolled Christian Democratic Party in Chile. I am, what is it, $150 short of that goal, and if you would like, yeah, that was wild. If you would like to support that project, here's a link. And the other link is where you can go and read the translations. Have a good night. It's always lovely to see you, and it's lovely to see new faces as well. Well, or new usernames. I don't really get to see faces. Have a good rest of your weekend, and try to, try to find things that allow you to come down from the fucked up shit that we're living through at the moment. Look at, I mean, here's just my little gift to you. Oh, I love the emotes there. Look up Talking Porcupine. Talking Porcupine on YouTube. You will thank me. It will make your life a little bit better. And I think we all need a little talking porcupine in times like these. Have a good